Hi, and welcome to a short video on how to create your first Flash Catalyst application. My name is Ty Volliter. I'm a developer on the Flash Catalyst team, and I'm going to show you how to take a static composition in Photoshop or Illustrator and turn it into something real with interactivity and animation. So I'm going to start here in Photoshop, and you'll see I have a composition already created, and it's called Sushi Finder. And it lets you click on various types of sushi on the left, and it's going to provide information about the fish as well as where you could buy it in your local area. So let's look at a few layers in the Photoshop Layers palette. So for example, when I click this hamachi, I want a rollover to appear. So I've created a layer that just has this square here that highlights the hamachi a little better. And when the user clicks on that, I also want to show some information about the hamachi sushi. So I have another layer up here called hamachi info. Let me make that visible. You'll see that's what it looks like with this little arrow pointing toward the hamachi menu item. So let's take this all into Catalyst and see how we can start adding some interactivity. So I'm going to switch over to Catalyst here, which I've already opened, and I'm sitting here on the welcome screen. Now I'm going to create this application straight from that Photoshop PSD file. So I'm going to say create new project from Adobe Photoshop PSD and choose that comp that I just showed you. Now Photoshop is asking me a few import options. The only thing that I want to change here is the background color. I'm going to change that to a nice light gray instead of white. So now as Catalyst is importing my Photoshop PSD file, it's going to preserve all the layers and object structure. So you'll see when I see it in Catalyst, it's going to look just the same. So here I am in Catalyst. And you'll see Catalyst has a layers palette just like Photoshop, and I see the identical structure. So here's my hamachi info layer. I can toggle on and off. And I can also go in and find that rollover that I showed you earlier, which is right here. I'll toggle that on and off. So the first thing I want to do is turn this piece of artwork here into a button. That button is going to allow me to have certain predefined interactivity like rollovers. So to do this, I'm just going to click all the hamachi artwork, right-click, and choose Convert Artwork to Component. And you'll see there's a few components available to me, and I'm going to choose Button. Now what this does is it's going to put all that artwork into a button component. So now you'll see that in my Layers palette, I just see Button. So where did that artwork go? Well, let me show you. Let's go ahead and edit the button. I'm just going to right-click on the button I've created and choose Edit Component. Now you notice my screen changed a little bit when I chose Edit Component, and that's because I'm in a mode called Edit in Place. You may be familiar with isolation mode in Illustrator or double-clicking on symbols in Flash. This is very similar. In this mode, I actually cannot select any of the artwork that's outside of the button. You'll see it's a little dimmed for my reference. But the artwork that is part of the hamachi item is all here for me to edit it. So now that I'm in Edit in Place, you'll see across the top of the screen I have all the states that come along with a button. So the over state, which is for when the mouse rolls over the button, or the down state when the mouse clicks on it. I want to make these states look a little different. So let's go to the over state, and let's turn on that highlight I showed you earlier. I'm going to find it in my Layers palette. Here it is. Okay, I have that highlight. And the other thing I want to happen when the user goes to the over state is I want the text to shift to the right. To do that, I'm just going to select the text and then use the arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge it over just a little bit. Okay, that looks good. So let's see what this application looks like so far. So I'm going to get out of editing the button by clicking right here. This is the breadcrumbs bar that shows me I'm editing button 1. I'm just going to click Comp to get back to my application. And then I'm going to choose File, Run Project to see what this all looks like. So now Catalyst is producing a piece of Flash content just like Flash would that I can see in the browser. So here I am in my browser, and you can see that the rollover works for a button. But you'll notice it jumps a bit, which is jarring. So let's make this look a little better by adding some animation. I'm going to go back to Catalyst, and I'm going to edit this button again. So I'm going to right-click and say Edit Component. Now, besides the states that a component has, a component also has something called transitions. Now, transitions are animations between different states. So if you look at the bottom of the screen where I have this timelines panel, the left-hand side lists all the possible transitions I could have between these states. Now, I care about the up to over transition, so I'm going to click it to select it, and you'll notice the right-hand side of the timeline changes to show me what the up to over transition currently looks like. And right now you'll see that the text is moving and that the highlight is fading, but it's happening instantly. That's why I see this fade and move like a vertical line. To make it take a little bit of time and to add some animation, I'm simply going to drag these effects out, and then let me hit preview this button here to see what it looks like. There we go. Now I have a nice smooth animation. Now I also want a smooth animation when the mouse rolls out of the button, so let me define that transition as well. So I'm going to click the over to up transition and show you a quick little shortcut. I'm just going to hit smooth transition to get a default setting for my effects here. Okay, so I'm done with the transitions for my button. So let me exit Edit and Place. Now the next thing I want to do is make it so when you click on this button here that it shows that Hamachi info. Well, to do that, I'm going to need an application state that can show that information. So I'm going to duplicate this state here, and I'm going to show Hamachi info. Then I'm going to rename my state so I don't get confused. So we'll call that Hamachi. And we'll call the first state menu. So now you'll see I have two application states, and the only difference is in this state here I've made the Hamachi info visible. So now I need to make it so when you click on the button I go from one state to another. So I'm going to do that by first selecting the button and then going to the Interactions HUD, or Heads Up Display, right here. You'll see in this piece of user interface there's an area called Custom Interactions. Well, that's what I want to build, a custom interaction. I'm going to hit plus, and I want this to happen when the user clicks on the button. I'm going to choose OnClick. This adds a new row for me to fill out, and I want to choose what I want to happen. So I want to play transition to state, because I'm going to go from the menu state to the Hamachi state. And then I need to choose which state I'm going to. I'll choose Hamachi. Now the final thing I want to do is I want to add some animation to this, because I know when I play it, again, the Hamachi is just going to immediately appear like that button did earlier. So let me go to my Timelines panel again, and I'm looking at the menu to Hamachi transition, and you notice it's just fading in. Well, I want to make it come down from the top. So to do that, I'll go to the menu state, I'll make Hamachi visible, and then I'm going to drag it vertically up. And I'm holding down the Shift key so I know that I don't accidentally move it left or right. Okay, so now it's above all my application here, and I'm going to hide it again. Now you notice that Catalyst shows me that the object is both moving and fading, but I want to add some animation to it, so I'm going to drag out move, so this occurs over 1 second, and then I'm going to leave the fade alone. So it's going to fade in instantly above and then move down. Let's preview that. That looks pretty good. So let's run this application now and see what we have. I'll choose Run Project again. And here I'm in my browser, and I can see the rollover. So this is switching between the two button states. And then I'm going to click, which will run that custom interaction that goes to the Hamachi application state. So now you can imagine how you could use these same concepts to build out the buttons for these other types of fish and show the information on the right. So I hope you enjoyed your first introduction to creating an application in Catalyst. I really encourage you to go to Adobe Labs and download the beta for yourself.